Marcus Reed walked through the steel corridors of the Galactic Defense Academy with steady steps. His black uniform was simple compared to the colorful gear worn by other cadets from across the galaxy. Today was his first day, and he could feel dozens of alien eyes watching him as he passed. Some looked curious, while others seemed doubtful about the human who had somehow earned a place in their elite training program. The Academy had accepted thousands of species over the centuries, but humans were new to this level of galactic military training. Earth had only recently joined the larger community of worlds, and most aliens still knew very little about human capabilities. What they did know came from basic files that listed Earth as a low-gravity world with standard atmospheric conditions. Nothing in those files suggested that humans would be anything special in combat training. Marcus entered the main training facility, where Commander Voss was waiting. The Thraxian instructor stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick scales covering his muscular frame. His yellow eyes studied Marcus with the same look a scientist might give an interesting but untested specimen. Around the chamber, other cadets were warming up under conditions that would challenge most species. The gravity was set to 1.5 times galactic standard, which was already more than most worlds could produce naturally. The commander activated his translation device and spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. He explained that human physiology was largely unknown to the Academy, but their records suggested that Earth gravity was quite weak by galactic standards. This meant that Marcus would need extra conditioning to handle the physical demands of military training. As a courtesy to the new species, the commander had decided to start with doubled gravity to give the human a proper challenge. Other cadets stopped their exercises to watch what would happen next. A few whispered among themselves about whether the human would collapse immediately or try to push through the pain before giving up. Most alien species needed months of conditioning before they could handle doubled gravity for more than a few minutes. Some never managed it at all despite their advanced technology and genetic advantages. Marcus felt the gravity generators come to life around him. The familiar sensation of increased weight settled over his body like an old friend welcoming him home. His muscles automatically adjusted to the new conditions without any conscious effort on his part. He had grown up in similar conditions during his childhood on Luna Station, where his father worked as a mining engineer. The artificial gravity there was often set higher than Earth normal to help workers maintain bone density during long assignments. What the aliens watching did not know was that humans had been dealing with variable gravity for generations. Their space stations, mining colonies, and military outposts all used different gravity settings depending on their function and location. Human children often played games that involved sudden gravity changes or wore weighted clothing to build strength. What the Academy considered extreme training was just another Tuesday for most humans. Marcus straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Commander Voss. The weight pressing down on him felt comfortable and familiar, like putting on a favorite jacket. His breathing remained steady and his heart rate stayed normal as his body easily adapted to the increased load. He had expected something more challenging based on all the warnings he had received about Academy training standards. The silence in the chamber stretched as everyone waited for the human to show signs of strain or distress. Instead, Marcus began doing some basic stretches to prepare for whatever exercises would come next. His movements were fluid and controlled, showing no sign that the doubled gravity was affecting him at all. If anything, he seemed more relaxed now than when he had first entered the room. Commander Voss checked his instruments to make sure the gravity field was working properly. The readings confirmed that the human was experiencing exactly twice galactic standard gravity, yet he showed no physical stress markers. His bone density, muscle tension, and cardiovascular readings were all completely normal for someone standing in standard conditions. It was as if the gravity field was not affecting him at all. Marcus finished his stretching routine and turned to face the commander with a slight smile on his face. The expression was not one of strain or forced bravado, but genuine contentment. He looked like someone who had just found exactly what they were looking for after a long search. The other cadets began murmuring among themselves as they realized that the human was not just surviving the doubled gravity but actually seemed to be enjoying it. The commander had trained thousands of cadets from hundreds of species over his long career. He had seen incredible displays of strength, speed, and endurance from some of the most physically gifted beings in the galaxy. But he had never seen anyone react to doubled gravity with such casual acceptance. Most cadets needed weeks of preparation before they could even walk normally under such conditions. Marcus looked around the training chamber and noted the various equipment designed to test strength, endurance, and agility under high-gravity conditions. Everything looked familiar to him from his basic training back on Earth. The obstacle courses, weight stations, and combat platforms were similar to what he had used during his military preparation, though perhaps a bit less challenging than what he was used to. He turned back to Commander Voss and spoke in a clear, steady voice that carried easily through the heavy atmosphere. His words were simple and direct, without any hint of disrespect or challenge. He was genuinely curious about what the Academy considered its most difficult training conditions and wanted to know if they could increase the gravity field even further. "Sir," Marcus said while maintaining eye contact with the towering alien. "Instructor, could we try triple?" The request hung in the air like a physical presence. Every conversation in the chamber stopped as both instructors and cadets tried to process what they had just heard. The human had not asked for relief from the doubled gravity that was already pushing most species to their limits. Instead, he had politely requested that they make the conditions even more extreme. Commander Voss felt his scaled features shift into an expression of confusion and growing respect. In all his years of training elite warriors from across the galaxy, he had never encountered a cadet who responded to their first gravity challenge by asking for more punishment. The human was either incredibly brave, incredibly foolish, or hiding capabilities that their species files had completely failed to mention. The training chamber remained silent as everyone waited to see how the commander would respond to such an unprecedented request. Commander Voss stared at the human for several long moments before reaching for the gravity controls. Word of Marcus's unusual request had already begun spreading through the Academy's communication systems. Instructors from other departments were dropping their current activities to witness what they expected would be either a spectacular failure or the discovery of a new type of alien physiology that defied their understanding of biology. The observation deck above the training chamber filled quickly with faculty members and senior cadets. Dr. Kane, the Academy's chief medical officer, pushed through the crowd with her scanning equipment, ready to monitor the human's vital signs. During what she assumed would be a brief and dangerous experiment, her instruments were calibrated to detect the early warning signs of gravity-induced organ failure that could kill a cadet in minutes under extreme conditions. Marcus remained standing in the center of the chamber while technicians verified that all safety systems were active. Emergency medical teams positioned themselves around the room with gravity nullification fields ready to deploy the moment the human showed signs of distress. The Academy had strict protocols about cadet safety, and no instructor wanted to be responsible for killing the first human to attend their program. The gravity generator began its climb toward triple galactic standard with a deep mechanical whine that vibrated through the chamber walls. Most of the alien cadets who had been training nearby were forced to retreat to lighter gravity zones as the field strength increased beyond their tolerance levels. Even the enhanced species who normally thrived under heavy conditions found themselves struggling to remain upright as the crushing force built around Marcus. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of Luna Station's maximum gravity training protocol settle over his body like a comfortable weight. His father had insisted that all family members maintain fitness under variable gravity conditions as a safety precaution during their years in the mining colonies. What the Academy considered an extreme test was simply the standard workout routine that Marcus had used throughout his teenage years. The pressure reached triple galactic standard and stabilized with a final electronic hum. Marcus took a deep breath and began the Academy's basic fitness assessment protocol without waiting for instructions. His movements were smooth and controlled as he dropped into a perfect push-up position and began counting repetitions. The observers watched in stunned silence as he completed the first 10 without any visible strain. Dr. Kane frantically adjusted her scanners as the readings defied everything she knew about biological limitations under extreme gravity. The human's heart rate had increased slightly but remained well within normal exercise parameters. His oxygen consumption was elevated but not to dangerous levels. Most shocking of all, his bone density readings suggested that his skeleton was not just surviving the crushing force but was actually designed to handle such conditions. Marcus finished 50 push-ups and moved smoothly into the sprint portion of the assessment. The running track curved around the chamber's perimeter, and most cadets needed several minutes to complete one lap under doubled gravity. Under triple gravity, even the strongest alien species would be reduced to a slow, painful walk if they could move at all. The human began running with the fluid stride of someone who had trained under these conditions for years. His feet struck the track with precise timing, and his breathing remained steady as he completed the first lap faster than most cadets could manage under standard gravity. The observers began murmuring among themselves as they realized they were witnessing something that should have been impossible. Commander Voss checked and rechecked his instruments to confirm that the gravity field was functioning properly. The readings showed that Marcus was definitely experiencing 3 times galactic standard gravity, yet he was not just surviving but excelling under conditions that would hospitalize most species. His performance was not just adequate, it was outstanding by any measure the Academy used to evaluate cadet capabilities. The combat maneuvers portion of the assessment required Marcus to navigate an obstacle course while demonstrating various fighting techniques. Under normal gravity, the course was challenging enough to eliminate half of all applicants. Under triple gravity, it should have been completely impossible for any organic being to complete without mechanical assistance or genetic modifications. Marcus approached the first obstacle with the same casual confidence he had shown since entering the chamber. The weighted climbing wall required cadets to pull their body weight, plus gravity enhancement straight up a 30-foot vertical surface. Most aliens needed specialized equipment and multiple attempts to complete this challenge under standard conditions. The human gripped the handholds and began climbing with smooth, efficient movements that made the exercise look effortless. His technique was flawless, and his pace never slowed as he reached the top and smoothly transitioned to the next obstacle. The watching instructors began taking detailed notes as they realized they were observing a completely new standard of physical capability. Dr. Kane's medical scanners continued providing readings that challenged her understanding of biology and physics. The human's muscle fibers were operating at efficiency levels that should have been impossible under such gravitational stress. His cardiovascular system was handling the increased workload as if triple gravity was a minor inconvenience rather than a potentially lethal challenge. The obstacle course included combat simulations that required Marcus to demonstrate various fighting techniques while maintaining balance under the crushing gravitational force. Each movement had to be precise and controlled because any mistake could result in serious injury when every action carried 3 times normal weight behind it. Marcus flowed through the combat sequences with the grace of someone who had learned to fight under variable gravity from childhood. His punches and kicks were delivered with perfect form and devastating power as the increased gravity added tremendous force to every strike. His defensive movements were equally impressive as he demonstrated that he could dodge and block attacks while maintaining perfect balance under conditions that would leave most species flat on their backs. The final portion of the assessment was an endurance test that required sustained physical activity for 30 minutes under maximum gravity conditions. Most cadets struggled to complete this test under standard gravity, and many failed entirely when conditions were enhanced. Under triple gravity, it was considered more of a theoretical exercise than a practical evaluation tool. Marcus began the endurance routine with the same steady pace he had maintained throughout the entire assessment. His breathing remained controlled and his movements stayed fluid as the minutes passed. The observers watched in growing amazement as he completed exercise after exercise without showing any signs of fatigue or distress. When the 30-minute timer finally ended, Marcus was still moving with the same energy and precision he had displayed at the beginning. His vital signs showed elevated but stable readings that indicated a challenging but sustainable workout rather than a desperate struggle for survival. He had not just completed the Academy's most difficult physical assessment, he had made it look routine. Commander Voss deactivated the gravity field and the chamber returned to standard conditions. Marcus straightened up and looked around at the crowd of observers, who were staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. He had proven that humans possessed physical capabilities that far exceeded anything in the Academy's database, but he showed no sign of arrogance or superiority about his performance. The silence was broken by Dr. Kane, who announced that she needed to conduct a full physiological study to understand how human biology could function so effectively under extreme conditions. Dr. Kane spent the next 3 days running every test the Academy's medical facilities could provide while trying to understand how Marcus had performed so well under extreme gravity conditions. Her instruments confirmed that human physiology was within normal parameters for an organic species, yet the results suggested capabilities that defied conventional understanding of biological limitations. The research team expanded their investigation beyond Marcus's individual biology and began studying detailed records of human civilization and planetary development. What they discovered in Earth's historical databases challenged everything they thought they knew about species evolution and environmental adaptation. Earth was not the gentle world described in the initial diplomatic contact files. The planet was a nightmare of extreme conditions that would serve as a death sentence for most galactic civilizations. The gravity was crushing by galactic standards, measuring nearly twice what most species considered comfortable. The atmospheric composition included oxygen at concentrations that were technically poisonous to many alien life forms. Weather systems on Earth regularly produced storms with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour and temperature variations that could kill unprotected beings in minutes. Geological activity constantly reshaped the landscape through earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tectonic shifts that made long-term settlement planning nearly impossible. The planet's magnetic field fluctuated in ways that would disrupt most. Advanced technology and its radiation levels required constant biological adaptation. Dr. Kane realized that humans had not evolved on a comfortable world suitable for peaceful development. Instead, they had been forged in conditions that served as a natural training ground for survival under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Every human carried genetic modifications developed through millions of years of adaptation to environmental challenges that would destroy other species. The discovery explained Marcus's casual attitude toward the Academy's physical challenges. The doubled gravity that had been intended as a severe test was actually lighter than his homeworld's natural conditions. The extreme training protocols that broke alien cadets were merely warm-up exercises by human standards. Commander Voss joined the research effort and began interviewing Marcus about daily life on Earth and human cultural practices. What he learned during these conversations fundamentally changed his understanding of human psychology and social development. Marcus described activities that humans pursued for entertainment which involved deliberately seeking dangerous conditions that would terrify most sentient species. Mountain climbing required humans to scale vertical rock faces under crushing gravity, while dealing with thin atmosphere and extreme temperature variations. Deep-sea diving meant descending into crushing pressure environments that would instantly kill most aliens while surrounded by predatory creatures and toxic gases. Cave exploration involved crawling through tight spaces underground where a single mistake could mean death by suffocation or crushing. Marcus explained these activities as normal recreational pursuits that humans enjoyed during their free time. He seemed genuinely surprised that other species would find such pastimes dangerous or unusual. On Earth, these were considered mild adventures suitable for children and elderly people who wanted gentle exercise and fresh air. The revelation became even more disturbing when Marcus began describing human competitive sports. Activities like rugby and American football involved deliberate physical combat between teams of humans who tried to injure each other while pursuing arbitrary objectives. Boxing and martial arts were formalized systems of hand-to-hand combat that humans practiced as artistic expression and personal development. Racing sports required humans to pilot vehicles at speeds that would be lethal if anything went wrong, while navigating courses designed to test the absolute limits of reaction time and physical endurance. Extreme sports push these concepts even further, with humans throwing themselves off cliffs, bridges, and aircraft, using minimal safety equipment while seeking the thrill of near-death experiences. Commander Voss listened with growing amazement. As Marcus casually mentioned that these activities were broadcast as entertainment for human audiences, who watched millions of their own species risking death for sport. The psychological implications were staggering because it suggested that humans not only tolerated extreme danger but actively sought it out as a form of relaxation and social bonding. The research team discovered that human military training incorporated many of these recreational activities as basic conditioning exercises. What other species would consider torture or punishment was standard physical education in human schools. Children learned to handle weapons, navigate dangerous terrain, and survive in hostile environments as part of their normal development process. Human history revealed a pattern of constant warfare and environmental adaptation that had shaped their evolution in ways no other known species had experienced. They had survived ice ages that froze most of their planet, volcanic events that blocked sunlight for years, and asteroid impacts that would have rendered most worlds uninhabitable. Each catastrophe had eliminated weaker human populations while strengthening the genetic traits that allowed survival under impossible conditions. The discovery explained why human space exploration had developed so rapidly compared to other species. What aliens considered the terrifying void of space was actually less dangerous than the surface conditions humans dealt with every day. Vacuum exposure, radiation, and mechanical failure were just additional environmental hazards to overcome rather than absolute barriers to expansion. Dr. Kane's team realized that the Academy's training protocols were not just inadequate for humans. They were barely sufficient to maintain basic fitness levels. Marcus had been polite about the institution's limitations, but his request for triple gravity was equivalent to asking for a proper warm-up before beginning actual exercise. The psychological evaluation revealed that humans process danger and stress in fundamentally different ways than other species. Where aliens experienced fear and caution when facing potentially lethal challenges, humans felt excitement and curiosity. Their brains were wired to seek out and overcome obstacles that would paralyze other life forms with terror. This mental conditioning explained Marcus's calm demeanor during the gravity test and his willingness to push for even more extreme conditions. He was not being reckless or showing off, but was simply looking for training that would provide an adequate challenge for his capabilities. The Academy's most difficult protocols were too easy to be useful for human development. The research findings were compiled into a comprehensive report that was distributed to military commands throughout the galaxy. The document described humans as a species that had evolved under conditions so extreme that they represented a new category of biological development. Their capabilities were not supernatural or technologically enhanced, but were the natural result of environmental pressures that no other known species had survived. The implications for galactic military strategy were enormous because humans appeared to be naturally adapted for exactly the kind of extreme combat conditions that modern warfare demanded. Their casual attitude toward danger, combined with superior physical capabilities, made them ideal candidates for missions that would be suicide runs for other species. Commander Voss concluded his portion of the report with a recommendation that the Academy completely restructure its training programs to accommodate human capabilities. The current protocols were not just inadequate, they were potentially insulting to a species that viewed the Academy's extreme challenges as basic fitness. Maintenance. The final surprise came when Marcus was asked about the upper limits of human physical performance under enhanced gravity conditions. He explained that Earth's military had experimentation facilities that could generate up to 5 times standard gravity for extended periods, and that elite human soldiers trained regularly under such conditions as preparation for combat in high gravity environments. The Academy's triple gravity test that had amazed everyone was actually below the standard training level used by human special forces units. The research findings about human capabilities reached the highest levels of galactic military command within a week of their completion. Admiral Korath of the Defense Council ordered an immediate review of all Academy training protocols and requested a personal meeting with Marcus to discuss the implications for future military strategy. What had begun as a simple admission of a new species to the Academy had transformed into a complete re-examination of physical training standards and combat effectiveness measurements. The discovery that humans routinely exceeded what other species considered maximum performance levels forced military planners to reconsider their basic assumptions about biological limitations and tactical possibilities. Marcus found himself at the center of an unprecedented revolution in military education. The Academy's instructors realized that their standard training protocols, which had been developed over centuries of experience with hundreds of species, were completely inadequate for even basic human conditioning. They needed to design entirely new programs that could challenge beings who treated extreme danger as recreational entertainment. Commander Voss was assigned to lead the development of enhanced training protocols that would incorporate human physical standards into the Academy's curriculum. The goal was not to expect other species to match human performance, but to use human capabilities as inspiration for pushing alien cadets beyond their previously accepted limitations. The new protocols began with gravity training that started at triple galactic standard and progressed upward based on individual cadet capabilities. Species that had never imagined surviving under such conditions found themselves adapting to gravitational forces that would have crushed their ancestors. The presence of a human who treated these conditions as normal exercise provided psychological motivation that made the impossible seem merely difficult. Marcus was assigned as a training assistant to help implement the new programs and provide demonstrations of proper technique under extreme conditions. His role was not to compete with alien cadets, but to show them what was possible when physical and mental limitations were discarded in favor of focused determination and proper preparation. The psychological impact of the changes was as significant as the physical improvements. Alien cadets who had previously considered themselves elite warriors found their confidence shaken by the realization that their species had been operating under artificial limitations for generations. The casual presence of a human who exceeded their best efforts without apparent strain forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about their own potential. Marcus maintained his humble and helpful attitude while secretly enjoying the fact that his normal Earth conditioning was being treated as superhuman achievement. He began sharing human training techniques with interested cadets, teaching them concepts like progressive overload interval training and functional fitness that were common knowledge on Earth, but revolutionary in galactic military circles. The Academy's combat simulation programs required complete overhaul to accommodate the new training standards. Scenarios that had challenged alien cadets for decades were easily handled by Marcus, who approached them with the problem-solving mindset of someone raised on a world where survival required constant adaptation to unpredictable threats. New simulation parameters were developed that incorporated the kind of extreme environmental challenges that humans considered normal background conditions. Gravity fluctuations, atmospheric variations, temperature extremes, and equipment failures were added to combat scenarios to create training conditions that would prepare cadets for real battlefield situations rather than idealized laboratory environments. The weapon training programs expanded to include projectile weapons that had been considered too dangerous for most species to handle safely. Marcus demonstrated human techniques for managing recoil, maintaining accuracy under stress, and operating equipment that generated forces which could seriously injure careless users. His casual competence with weapons that terrified other species inspired new safety protocols and training methods. Physical conditioning classes were restructured around human exercise principles that emphasized functional strength, endurance under stress, and adaptation to changing conditions. Traditional alien fitness programs had focused on optimizing performance under controlled circumstances, while human methods prepared trainees for success when everything went wrong simultaneously. The Academy's medical facilities upgraded their equipment to monitor physiological responses under the new extreme training conditions. Dr. King developed new safety protocols based on human biology research that allowed alien cadets to push their physical limits safely while avoiding the injuries that had previously been considered inevitable during intensive training. Marcus's fellow cadets initially viewed him with suspicion that gradually transformed into respect and eventually into genuine friendship. They realized that his superior physical capabilities did not make him arrogant or dismissive of their efforts. Instead, he was consistently helpful and encouraging while maintaining realistic expectations about what different species could achieve. The Catherian cadet named Tor had struggled with standard gravity training for months before Marcus's arrival. Working with human training methods and encouragement from Marcus, he eventually succeeded under enhanced conditions that would have been unthinkable during his first weeks at the Academy. His improvement inspired other cadets to attempt challenges they had previously considered impossible. The Zentari cadet called Zara had considered herself a peak physical specimen among her species until witnessing Marcus's casual excellence under extreme conditions. Rather than becoming discouraged, she used his example as motivation to discover new levels of endurance and strength that exceeded her previous personal records by substantial margins. The Academy's academic programs also evolved to incorporate human strategic thinking and tactical approaches that emphasized adaptability over rigid planning. Marcus shared human military concepts like improvised solutions, battlefield innovation, and the assumption that original plans would fail under real combat conditions, requiring immediate creative responses. The changes extended beyond physical training to include psychological conditioning that prepared cadets for the mental stresses of operating under extreme conditions. Human techniques for managing fear, controlling stress responses, and maintaining focus during chaotic situations became standard components of the curriculum. Marcus participated in war game exercises that demonstrated human tactical thinking under pressure. His approaches to combat problems often surprised alien instructors, who had developed strategies based on the assumption that extreme conditions would degrade performance rather than potentially improving it through increased focus and simplified decision-making processes. The Academy's graduation requirements were updated to reflect the new training standards, while maintaining fair evaluation criteria for different species. Cadets who could demonstrate competence under human-inspired extreme conditions graduated with honors, while those who achieved basic proficiency under enhanced protocols received standard certification. The institutional changes attracted attention from military academies throughout the galaxy as word spread about the revolutionary improvements in cadet performance and graduation success rates. Delegations arrived to study the new training methods and request human instructors for their own programs. Marcus found himself scheduled for speaking engagements at military conferences where he presented human training concepts to audiences of alien officers, who struggled to comprehend how his species had developed such effective methods for extreme condition warfare. His presentations were always practical demonstrations rather than theoretical lectures because human techniques required direct experience to be properly understood. The Academy's reputation transformed from a respected but conventional military institution into the galaxy's premier training facility for special operations and extreme environment combat. Cadets who graduated under the new protocols were highly sought after by elite military units that had previously struggled to find personnel capable of handling their most demanding missions. The success of the new training programs validated the decision to incorporate human methods into galactic military education while demonstrating that physical and mental limitations were often self-imposed rather than absolute biological constraints. 6 months after Marcus's arrival, the Academy held its graduation ceremony in the main assembly hall with representatives from military commands throughout the galaxy in attendance. The graduating class had not only completed the traditional program but had participated in the first implementation of the revolutionary training protocols that Marcus's presence had inspired. The ceremony began with the traditional review of cadet achievements and academic honors but quickly evolved into a celebration of unprecedented performance improvements across all species represented in the graduating class. Cadets who had struggled with basic conditioning under standard gravity were now excelling under enhanced conditions that would have hospitalized their predecessors. Marcus stood with his fellow graduates wearing the same simple uniform he had arrived in 6 months earlier. His academic record showed perfect scores in all physical training categories and exceptional performance in tactical studies, strategic planning, and combat leadership. More importantly, his presence had catalyzed improvements in every other cadet's performance that exceeded anything in the Academy's historical records. Admiral Korath addressed the assembly with a speech that acknowledged the fundamental changes in military training philosophy that had occurred during the past 6 months. The discovery of human capabilities had forced a complete reevaluation of what sentient species could achieve when properly challenged and supported with effective training methods. The Admiral announced that the Galactic Defense Council had officially adopted what they termed human standard protocols for all elite military training programs throughout the member worlds. These protocols would not require other species to match human performance levels, but would use human capabilities as inspiration for pushing beyond previously accepted limitations. Commander Voss was promoted to Director of Advanced Training and tasked with implementing the new protocols at military academies across the galaxy. His experience working with Marcus had provided insights into extreme condition training that were already being requested by special operations units that faced combat situations beyond normal environmental parameters. Dr. Kane received funding for a new research institute dedicated to studying physiological adaptation under extreme conditions. Her work with human biology had revealed possibilities for enhancing other species' performance through targeted conditioning and genetic therapy programs that could improve survival rates in hostile environments. The graduation ceremony included demonstrations of the new training methods with current cadets, performing exercises under conditions that would have been considered impossible before Marcus's arrival. Alien dignitaries watched in amazement as beings they had thought physically limited exceeded human performance levels through application of training techniques developed on Earth. Marcus received the Academy's highest honors, including the Distinguished Service Medal for exceptional contribution to military science and the Innovation Award for revolutionary advances in training methodology. But the recognition that meant the most to him was the respect and friendship of his fellow cadets who had worked alongside him to discover their own hidden capabilities. The ceremony concluded with an announcement that Marcus had been selected to remain at the Academy as an instructor rather than accepting assignment to a regular military unit. His role would be to help train the next generation of galactic defenders while continuing to develop new applications for human training methods in military education. The assembly hall erupted in approval as cadets, instructors, and visiting dignitaries recognized that Marcus's continued presence would ensure the Academy's evolution toward even greater excellence. His combination of exceptional capabilities and humble leadership had made him the ideal candidate for helping other species discover their own potential for extreme performance. Following the formal ceremony, Marcus found himself surrounded by representatives from various galactic military branches who were eager to recruit human personnel for their specialized units. The revelation of human capabilities had created demand for soldiers who could operate effectively under conditions that challenged the limits of technology and biological endurance. Marcus politely declined the recruitment offers while explaining that his commitment was to education rather than active military service. His goal was to help develop training methods that would allow all species to perform at levels approaching human standards, rather than simply providing human soldiers for dangerous missions. The celebration continued into the evening with informal gatherings where Marcus shared stories about human culture and military traditions with alien officers who were still struggling to understand how his species had developed such remarkable capabilities. These conversations helped build relationships that would support continued cooperation between human and alien military forces. 3 weeks after graduation, Marcus stood in the same training chamber where he had first requested triple gravity conditions. The room was now equipped with enhanced generators capable of producing gravitational fields up to 5 times galactic standard. Current cadets were training under conditions that would have been unthinkable before his arrival. The new class included representatives from species that had never before attempted academy training because their worlds were considered too harsh for normal military development. The success of the human-inspired protocols had convinced these species that their environmental disadvantages might actually be hidden strengths when properly channeled through effective training methods. Marcus watched a mixed group of alien cadets pushing themselves through obstacle courses under quadruple gravity conditions. Their movements were precise and controlled despite the crushing force around them. 6 months earlier, such performance would have been impossible, but the psychological impact of knowing that greater achievements were possible had enabled breakthrough improvements. The training chamber door opened, and a new human recruit entered the facility. Alex Turner had arrived from Earth with the same quiet confidence that Marcus had displayed during his first day. She looked around the room with interest while other cadets paused their exercises to see how the second human would handle the Academy's enhanced training standards. Commander Voss activated the gravity controls and set the field to triple galactic standard, which had become the minimum assessment level for human evaluation. The alien cadets watched from the observation areas as Alex felt the familiar weight of increased gravity settle over her body with the same casual acceptance that Marcus had shown. Alex straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Commander Voss with the same slight smile that had started everything 6 months earlier. Her voice was clear and steady as she made a request that confirmed human capabilities were consistent across their species rather than unique to Marcus. "Sir," she said while maintaining perfect posture under crushing gravitational force, "could we try quadruple?" Marcus grinned as he realized that the Academy's evolution was just beginning. The presence of additional human instructors would accelerate the development of training methods that could push alien cadets to even greater achievements. Each new human arrival would bring different perspectives and techniques that could be adapted for use with other species. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited to see how Commander Voss would respond to the second impossible request in 6 months. The gravity generators hummed to life as they climbed toward quadruple galactic standard, creating conditions that challenged even Marcus's capabilities, but that Alex appeared ready to handle with the same casual competence. The Academy had transformed from a conventional military institution into the galaxy's premier center for extreme condition training. The changes had proven that physical limitations were often mental constructs rather than absolute biological facts. With human guidance and inspiration, alien species were discovering capabilities they had never imagined possible. The future promised even greater developments as more humans joined the Academy staff and the training protocols continued evolving. The galaxy's military forces would benefit from soldiers who could operate effectively under any conditions while maintaining the psychological resilience necessary for success in the most challenging combat situations. Marcus knew that his simple request for triple gravity had started a revolution in military thinking that would continue long after his own career ended. The Academy would never again accept artificial limitations as permanent barriers to achievement.